What you know what, just to be safe. Thing you did ended up saving your ass later. Flipped over my shoe and shook it. 'Cause I had found a spider in it the night before. Just to make sure. There was another spider in there. Saving a receipt for a campus parking ticket I paid for during my freshman year of college. They do this thing where they double the ticket amount after a month of not paying. I paid it the week I got it. Stuffed the receipt in my bag and forgot about it. Apparently, whoever was in charge of clearing me didn't. And I was told I had an unpaid, doubled parking ticket on my account after like 3 months when I tried to settle up tuition for the semester. Disputed that, and wore a smug ass look on my face as I directly reached in my bag and pulled the receipt out to show them. I mean, otherwise, I would have had to essentially pay that ticket 3 times. Something tells me it's not the first time that's happened to students there. I was offered a job in Europe, where I was promised a bonus that was X% of my salary. Paid twice a year. When the offer was sent, there was no mention of the bonus, and when I questioned why, I was told, "Don't worry. It's in this email with my official company signature." I put that one into the saved folder. Just to be safe. Fast forward to moving. On the first payout period I was told I needed to be with the company for 90 days first before a bonus would be paid. Okay. I was annoyed. But I guess that makes sense. On the second bonus payment, they mentioned that the company hadn't had a great year and nobody would be getting bonuses. More annoyed. But if the company isn't doing great, what are you going to do? I should add this was in 2008. The following year rolls around and the company announces that things have really taken off and they will pay out the previous bonus period, in addition to the current bonus period. Only problem is, I literally handed in my resignation that day. I inquire to find out if I'll be receiving my bonus from the previous bonus period. And they say, "Are you kidding? You just quit." I call a lawyer. I dig up the email from the start of this post. Hand that over. And the lawyer says it's a slam dunk case. She goes after both bonus payments from the first year. And both bonus payments from the current year. Even though one of them hasn't happened yet. Company HQ calls me and tries to get me to drop it. And I refer them to my lawyer. A week later, at my new job, the lawyer informs me that they've paid all 4 bonus payments. And she also went after her own fees. So it cost me nothing. Glad I saved that email. Cover your ass. And do not let others push you around. I've written about this before. But here goes. 4 students of mine won the first prize for a project they did and we all got a free trip to London. We had spent the day sightseeing and were exhausted, so we got an ice cream and sat on a bench in a park to relax. A couple of minutes later I notice this couple walk by slowly, staring at us. My spidey senses go mental. I do not like these people for some reason. She walks by and sits on the bench next to ours and he sits on the bench across from hers. They aren't talking, just looking at each other. And that is when I notice her reaching into her pockets. I jump up, grab my students and run out of the park. My poor students are confused AF and wondering WTF is wrong with me. When all of a sudden we hear screaming. Turns out she stabbed a couple walking through the park, trying to rob them. It scares the ever-loving fuck out of me knowing had I not gotten my students out of there, we would have been stabbed and robbed. Edit. For all those trying to turn this into a racial shit show. Everyone involved in this incident was white. I booked a vacation for my wife's birthday in Cabo San Lucas months in advance. For some reason as I was booking it I decided to get the trip insurance. I had never done that before, but time this I thought I better do it. Our trip was to be in October, I booked it in June. The beginning of September a hurricane struck Cabo and did a lot of damage. I contacted the resort and they said they were not very badly affected. I left the reservation booked. The day before we were to fly to Cabo I checked the flights and everything was good to go. We got to the airport and as we were checking the woman checking in said, "Oh, there's a problem with your connecting flight." Yeah, the problem was the connecting flight had been cancelled over a month ago. Yeah, Expedia neglected to tell us that little bit of info. I was able to recoup all of the money we spent because of the insurance. Was remodeling my house. Took out a loan and had to get the house appraised to get the loan. Found that my house was worth $100K more than I had it insured for. Raised my limits on the home insurance to $50K more than the appraised value in anticipation of completing renovations. 2 weeks later house burned to the ground due to a faulty bathroom fan that I did not touch. City. Insurance company and loan company all sent separate investigators due to how shady it looked. A tropical storm was blowing through my city a few months ago and we were projected to get some wind gusts and significant rain. Because our parking lot isn't large enough for all staff and our clients. A lot of us have to park on the street, which is lined with large, old trees. As I rolled up on the morning we were due to get the storm, I parked in my usual spot down the block. Before I shut the car off, though, I noticed that this particular spot was located directly across the street from one of the largest trees on the block. Thinking, you know what? Just to be safe, I put the car in reverse and backed up about 10 feet. Safely out of the direct line of fire from any trees. In the middle of that afternoon, in the midst of the howling wind and driving rain, we heard a huge thud down the street. Went to investigate and that same tree I'd been parked across the street from fell across the road and missed my car by about 8 feet. At that moment, I was glad that I decided to play it safe. The car parked on the other side of the street directly across from where I'd initially been got absolutely destroyed. Crushed roof. Windows blown out. Just pulverized. I spent extra money on Kevlar motorcycle gloves. A lot more expensive but 5 times more durable. When I later on crashed with my sports motorcycle, I slid the first stretch of meters on the palms of my hands, and feet and knees, before I started rolling, etc. I had a car sitting on jack stands because I needed to do some transmission work. Before climbing under it, I thought it'd be a good idea to rock the car around. One of the jack stands was not in the right spot and the car slipped off it. Slamming down on the front disc brakes would have killed me. Working in an electric panel, I went over to check to make sure the disconnect was off. It wasn't. I was being careful either way, not getting near the high voltage stuff, but it didn't need to be on. And could have easily killed myself with one mistake. This happened yesterday. I took one of those extra driving classes you always hear about to get the discount on your car insurance. I was in college and my premium was killing me. The one I signed up for was an 8-hour course that I knocked out in one day, and the focus was maintaining control of your vehicle in bad weather. I took it over spring break, which is still a pretty snowy, icy time of year around here. The big test at the end to determine if you got the certificate was to pass the moose test, though some places call it the elk test or the deer test. Either way, to pass the course you had to successfully swerve around some cones on an icy road and regain control of the car on the other side of the cones. So my first day back at school from spring break, I'm driving myself and my roommate from the liquor store back to our dorm in some shitty conditions. I try to turn left into our parking lot and my car just slides straight past it. And down a hill. I try to turn the wheel right to get into a different parking lot and get closer. But not quite where I need it to be. I'm heading straight for a telephone pole. My roommate is panicking, but I looked at it and I realized this is just the moose test. I managed to swerve around the pole, narrowly missing a wall of parked cars next to it, and regained control on the other side, finally bringing my car to a stop in an empty section of the parking lot. Then we walked back to the dorm and drank our faces off. So the moral of the story is, those extra driving classes you might take for the insurance discount may just save your life. I was undergoing pilot training and was pretty new to the whole thing, feeling the pressure to perform, etc. I walked out to pre-flight a plane for a solo flight. You do this completely alone. Instructor was back at flying school doing something else. After doing my walk around, it's time to check the oil. Cessna 172s have a dipstick that is attached to a cap that screws into the engine. You unscrew cap and remove dipstick along with it and check the oil. Except, after I unscrew the cap, there doesn't seem to be a dipstick attached to it. I have this thought, well, the engine is still warm from the dudes who just flew before me, so they flew it like this. Maybe they had a separate dipstick? They must have checked the oil then some other way. Then I have the well. To be safe, I should actually pack this up and go ask someone at the flight school exactly how to check the oil in this case. Note: this takes quite a chunk of time out of my supposed flight and will cut my lesson for the day short by quite a margin. But I do it anyway. Long story short, info gleaned from subsequent investigations. The dipstick had broken off during the previous flight. That had landed just minutes before, and had slid straight into the engine, where the crankcase had been chomping away metal from the tip. That metal now circulating in the engine. The aircraft was grounded. It was extremely dangerous to fly, and at massive cost had to be stripped down. The entire engine disassembled, and they actually had to find every bit of metal missing from the dipstick and reassemble the dipstick before plane could be reassembled and made flight worthy again. If, in a moment of stupidity, I'd taken off in that plane, I'd probably be dead. Going to the doctor. Turns out I have testicular cancer but caught it early. Getting it removed Friday. Check your nuts, guys. Edit 1/2. Man, I love this community, smiley face. Thank you all for the kind words of encouragement. I'm trying to respond to people, but I just can't keep up with the comments and need to go back to work. Lots of people asking about symptoms, so please see below. And thank you, stranger, for my first gold. Wish it was for a happier occasion, but beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. List of symptoms. Dull pain in and around the testicles. Edit. For me, this pain came and went, it wasn't consistent. Often related to sitting uncomfortably or agitating the testicle. Right testicle is overly sensitive. Edit. This was consistent and still is. Eventually, the right testicle began to swell. That turned into a firm, irregular lump on the surface of the testicle. Mine is about the size of a cut-in-half marble, though not as round. Some get much bigger if you wait. The pain and swelling can be caused by a number of things, but you should get that checked out regardless. Any lump on the actual surface of the testicle needs to be checked out immediately. Do not wait. Info about me, for those curious if we share medical history, etc. I'm 29 years old. No recent trauma to the testes. My grandfather apparently had some cancer previously. Medium health. I'm not a fit geek, but I'm not exceedingly unhealthy. According to the ultrasound report, I have evidence of testicular microlithiasis, which is basically calcium buildup. This is positively correlated with testicular cancer, though not a positive indicator on its own. Updates. Seeking a second opinion, I found that an outside doctor initially reviewed the ultrasound results. I got a hold of the report. He found the lump was hypervascular, meaning increased blood flow, which is consistent with quickly growing malignant tumors. It was not cystic, and the makeup of the lump was fairly consistent throughout. Said it had properties most consistent with seminoma, a treatable, low lethality type of cancer that does respond to radiation. This still needs to be verified. He also noted bilateral testicular microlithiasis, which is a fancy way of saying sparse calcium buildup, which is positively correlated with occurrence of testicular cancer. I will update after surgery, but the real news won't be until future bloodwork and pathological exam of the tumor. Gonna be Johnny one ball for a while until I get a prosthetic. Hopefully Lefty is okay and didn't pick up the cancer just yet, or it'll be Jimmy no balls instead. Edit 3. For those asking why a prosthetic. Honestly, I haven't thought about it much. I know it's an option and I'm considering it, but I'm not tied to the idea at all. Part of me just thinks having a fake nut would be cool for some reason. I think I'm weird, guys. Think they will put one with an LED in it? I could have a glow-in-the-dark sack. Edit 4. Updated the symptoms a bit. Also, with the amount of encouragement, I think I might actually try to get an LED testicle. We'll update for sure, haha. Edit 5. Formatting cause I'm bored. Also an update on symptoms, medical report, etc. Extra info based on comments and thread, for those worried about symptoms they might have. A lump on the skin of the scrotum is not necessarily cancerous, and more often than not is a sebaceous or skin cyst. I have one myself. If it grows slowly and eventually just settles on its size, that's probably all it is. I've had the same lump for years. You can actually lance these to get some of the skin juice out, but it's pretty gross and not really that safe to do on your own. If it grows too much, it may need to be removed. A few people saying they had localized swelling near the testicles but not on them. There are a number of things this can be related to that are not cancer. Obviously get them checked out, as some can still be bad. If it's squishy swelling above or around the testes, it's probably something else. If it's a firm lump directly on the surface of the testicle itself, then it very well may be a tumor. In either case, go to the doctor, people. I was 19 and home for the summer from college. I had a contraband bottle of Bacardi stashed in my bedroom under a pile of clothes and other stuff between my bed and the window. My grandfather appears in a dream and sits me down with this bottle to chew me out. Not for having booze as a kid, but for hiding it so poorly. I wake up. A bit disturbed by this dream, and throw the bottle of Bacardi in a duffel bag and toss that in the trunk of my car as I leave for work. Get home that evening, and the pile it had been stashed under was moved as my mom had set up a table with a fan by the window to get air moving. Grew up in northern Y without AC. Wouldn't have been a fun rest of the summer had I been busted with that. I bought a used Subaru Baja that was 5 years old at the time and had 75k miles for $12,000. The salesman offered an extended warranty that covered the engine for $2,500. Would last 3 years, 36k miles. That was kind of a lot. And I usually don't buy those. I don't know what got into me that day. But I said sure. 1 month and 750 miles later, after an oil change at a mechanic shop, oil started shooting into the pistons? I'm not good with cars. Oil went where it wasn't supposed to go. Completely ruined the engine and turbo. The dealer had to keep it for 3 weeks. The warranty company flew someone out to inspect the car, and eventually approved a replacement engine, turbo, and any other affected parts. Total repairs cost almost $11,000. And the warranty then applied to all the new parts too. Car drove like it was brand new. Later discovered the car had 5 previous owners before me. But I couldn't find any accident or serious repair history. This is probably the only time buying an extended warranty on something actually worked out in my favor. Control+S. 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 And more Control+S. Never know when the power will go out. One time, I unplugged my TV and game systems before leaving home ahead of a big storm. Came back to find that everything I hadn't unplugged had fried completely. Edit. Wow. My most upvoted comment. Thanks all. To answer you all, I've had surge protectors not do their jobs before. So I thought it'd be a good idea to be safe. Also, all my appliances were covered under my renter's insurance policy. But none of my entertainment media devices would have. As I was not a student, so I didn't really have a need for that stuff. I'd have gotten a check for my TV and stuff, which would have replaced it. But this was before the days of cloud game saving. So I would have lost all of my progress and a couple games that came with the console when I bought it used. Second edit. No. A breaker won't protect you from a surge. Only from short circuit. You'd need an arc fault breaker with built-in surge protection. Very expensive in comparison to a renter's, homeowner's insurance policy. Many years ago when I was a tech at a call center, I was on a call with the client's IT guy to fix a corrupted database. Their IT guy shared screens with me so that I could work on the recovery. The IT guy renamed the files as fuckeddb, fucked back up_db, etc. Just to be safe. I had him say that it was he who named the files as such and not me. I asked him to confirm this each time I had to touch the files. I took screenshots also. Little did I know, this call was monitored, voice and screen recording. A day later, I got called in by a manager asking me to explain a situation that came out of a recent call I was on. He had only seen a few screenshots that were made by the recording program. I told him to watch the whole video with the synced audio. A few hours later, he called me into his office to apologize for speaking to me with such an accusatory tone. Moral of the story: always cover your ass. On the brighter side, after the incident, this manager was always super nice to me and backed me up whenever there was an issue. He even wrote me a rave review, recommendation on LinkedIn, back when LinkedIn actually got you jobs. Edit. The LinkedIn bit is just a tongue-in-cheek joke. Arrive in San Francisco a week into a trip. As we gather our things during a moment of downtime, I go back to check the bus costs. You know, it never hurts. Found my passport, which I had no idea I dropped. Couple of years ago I restarted The Sopranos from season 1. I think it's in the first season where the water heater leaks and floods Tony's basement. So there are these scenes where he's waiting around in a flooded basement. I was imagining what a nightmare that would be. It reminded me that when I bought my house, the inspector told me I would need to replace the water heater within 5 years. I then realized that was like 12 years prior. So I suddenly got nervous. I went and looked at the water heater. And it seemed fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I also did not have the money to pay to have a new water heater installed. So, I decided to go ahead and buy a new water heater and then save up money to pay someone to install it. The water heater arrived and I stored it in the laundry room. Just a few weeks after it arrived, I happened to look at the old water heater. And I noticed the catch pan under it had an inch of water in it. It was leaking. Oh no. Emergency. Except wait a minute. I already have a plan for this. So, instead of saving up money to hire a plumber, I went to YouTube and learned how to install my own water heater. It all worked out perfectly. All because The Sopranos made me anxious about the condition of my water heater, causing me to randomly purchase a water heater I had no immediate plan to install. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.